Hi, I'm Dan Horn with Discerning History, and this is the monument to the Battle of Great Bridge. The Battle of Great Bridge took place in Southern Virginia. We don't usually think of battlefields in Virginia during the American Revolution, except for Yorktown, of course. Most of the battles took place in New England and in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. But this battle, which took place in December of 1775, was an early battle, and it was very decisive in driving the British out of Virginia. This was sometimes called the Second Battle of Bunker Hill. The Battle of Great Bridge took place here because this is the way from North Carolina to Norfolk. Lord Dunmore was in a boat in Norfolk Harbor. Lord Dunmore was the governor of Virginia, but he had issues with the Whigs. The Whigs were the American Patriots, and as they gained power in Virginia, there were conflicts between them and Lord Dunmore. And so as they gained prominence, there were some skirmishes over gunpowder in Williamsburg and other things that caused Lord Dunmore to decide that he had to consolidate his forces in Norfolk. The Americans wanted to take Norfolk, so they sent about 900 troops up to where this bridge was. The Elizabeth River runs under Great Bridge, but Fort Murray was on the other side. It was where the British were garrisoned, and they had a few guns to help protect the bridge. As they see all these Americans come, they start to get intelligence to say how many there are, and they decide there's about 300 or 400 on this side of the bridge. They decide that the best thing, because they're outnumbered, is to go on the offensive. So what they do is they send 80 British grenadiers across the bridge. The grenadiers were the big men in the British Army. In the 17th century, to throw grenades, you needed big, strong men. They had to run across the lines, and then they had to throw heavy grenades. So they created special troops. They were kind of shock troops that would go in with the grenades. They didn't use grenades the same way anymore, but the British continued to keep the grenadiers together because those would be the men that they would send in first. And that's what they did here. About 80 men came across the bridge. When they see the grenadiers coming, most of the Americans are back in the camp. There's a few men up here where they have breastworks. Breastworks are basically dug in where they stand behind the breastworks to fire on the opposing forces. The grenadiers start to come across, and what happened here is pretty unusual in the American Revolution. Typically what happens is the militia gets scared, and when they get scared, they start firing. They fire way too early, and they tend to fire high. Here they wait. They wait until the grenadiers are 50 yards away. When they're 50 yards away, they open fire and their shots tell. Many of the grenadiers are hit and they start to fall back. The Americans end up charging after them, capturing the wounded of the British. By then, the American troops from the camp are in place and they're easily outnumbering the British. They move across the bridge and they move off to the left. The British have all fallen back and consolidated in Fort Murray. The British saw that they could be cut off from Norfolk, so they decided to retreat and they abandoned the fort and went to Norfolk. In Norfolk, as the troops came up, the British actually went out to ships in the harbor and the town fell to the Americans. With the Americans occupying Norfolk and the British in the harbor, the British decide to shell Norfolk, hoping to light it on fire. They succeed and the city starts to burn. The Americans decide the best thing to do is to pillage whatever they can out of the city and burn the rest. So Norfolk basically disappears from the map. This battle was called the Second Bunker Hill by the commander of the American forces because it was such a lopsided battle. This battle had 60 to 100 British casualties, but the Americans only had one wounded, and he was only wounded in the thumb. This decisive battle ends up causing the British to be removed from Virginia until later in the war. A very significant event. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also visit www.discerninghistory.com for more videos and other resources.